This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Joviet. Tonight, it's Ask Us Anything night. So calling your questions on everything from car accidents to nursing home negligence. The 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. We've got the guys from Timberlake and League, and they handle personal injury cases. That's everything from car wrecks, slip and fall cases, injuries at work and things like that. Good to have both of you guys here. So Heath Brooks and William Meservey. We like to start off the show with a clip that we call You Make the Law Call. We've got a clip that we've pulled from YouTube. Some days you're just minding your own business and things come find you. This poor guy, he's just at the gas station and a tire rolls in off the interstate. It looks like it's clearly going to miss him. No!
Damn.
Of course it takes off his bumper there. Okay, you guys, he did not get physically hurt, but injuries like this falls into some of what you guys do, right? If you've been damaged in some way, that's a personal injury.
It sure is. And you know, here's the thing. This has happened to me.
Really?
Yes. I've been driving down the interstate, tire come bouncing at me, hits my car, takes out the side of it. Look, a rolling tire can do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's kind of one of those things that if you can find out how the tire got off the car, then you may have a claim against somebody.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we've seen situations where, you know, the folks at the tire shop didn't screw the lug nuts in all the way.
Okay.
And so, you know, that's on the tire shop.
Okay.
And it caused injury to the folks in the car too. You know, it's just you see this all the time. Foreign objects on the road. How did they get there? Can you prove who it was that caused them to get there? Hopefully, this lady can prove who caused that tire to come off the vehicle. And perhaps, if not, she may have some collision coverage.
Okay, so if she can't prove.
Of note is you don't necessarily need to prove where that tire came from.
Okay.
Particularly in an injury case.
All right.
Because if it is, there's Alabama case law that holds, look, if you can prove this thing came off a vehicle, and so I believe that the facts of this particular case were that back seat of a car was in the road. And that caused the lady to swerve. She hit a median. And all she had to prove for her own uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage was that this object in the road came from another vehicle. And we've been able to successfully prove that in a subsequent case involving a ladder that we were able to successfully argue must have come off of a work truck because it's in the middle of 565.
Yeah.
And there's no public access, by and large, to 565. So we were able to prove that that ladder came off of a truck. So you can recover in certain circumstances, even when you can't prove where that came from.
Using your own insurance.
Correct.
Gotcha. Right. Okay. It's Ask Us Anything night, and we open the phone lines up to any kind of question. Let's start off. We've got Howie on the line. Hi, Howie. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yeah, I have a question about a sheriff's sale at the courthouse for a house. If they hold the sale there, are they required to announce before the sale that it may be subject to mortgages that are already on the property?
Do they have to tell you all the dangers? That's interesting.
You know, as far as I know, when you're selling a house at a quick sale, sheriff's selling it from the courthouse steps, there's an auction type of process. You've got to do your own due diligence. You've got to go down to the probate court. You've got to see if there are any encumbrances. That's what a mortgage is called. It's an encumbrance on the deed. So, you know, it's my understanding that would be something that you would want to investigate yourself, go out and look at the house, go out and check and make sure there's no prior mortgages on that house, whether there's any right of redemptions, those kinds of things before you go into a purchase of it.
Okay.
When you're buying at an auction, you are both the buyer and the realtor, right?
Exactly.
So you're going to have to do that, as he said, due diligence.
We've got Rhonda on the line with a question from Decatur. Hi, Rhonda. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
My question is, 3 months ago, my neck has been broke, and I had to have 2 vertebrae and 4 screws put in.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, guess what? I just had to have surgery because 2 of the screws broke, and I haven't done anything to break them. And I am really upset because this surgery was number 13 on my neck, and it's full of hardware. And I don't think that the company that makes the titanium screws they're not supposed to break.
Sure doesn't sound like something that ought to break. Where do we start with something like that?
Well, I mean, the first question is that a common complication or a known risk of this procedure? Because the Alabama Medical Liability Act is going to bar you in that event. If it's a common complication where 4% of everybody who goes in for this surgery, has a broken screw or needs a revision to fix a piece of hardware, that may bar you from recovery. You're going to have to prove that those screws were either defective in nature, or you're going to have to prove that one of the medical professionals was negligent in putting it into your body and during the surgery. And so we see this sometimes with medical devices where years later it does come to find out that the company that produced the screw or the hardware for the knee or whatever it is knew of problems and continued to send that out into the market because of the profits. And then when it is discovered that, hey, it causes X, Y, or Z, then that's when you start to see class action lawsuits where they go after these medical device companies. I'm not aware of any current ones for screws.
Not for a screw. There's a couple of different ways you can look at this. Like William said, it's a medical malpractice. Is there a defect in the actual product? Is it a situation where it's a one-off defect? In other words, if you have a design defect, like all of the products that have been designed, they've been designed negligently, then you have a situation where you could have a vast recall of all those products. But sometimes you have what's called a manufacturer's defect, which means that just that one product that was put into your neck, those titanium screws, for whatever reason that time were defective. And that is what's called a product's liability claim. That means that the product was defective, and because of that defect, you suffered an injury. And those kinds of cases, a lot of times, are going to be pretty document heavy. So I would encourage you, if you have not, get a copy of your medical records. Within your medical records, there will have to be identifications of the product that was put into your neck. And so that way you can learn exactly what it was, who the manufacturer was, and then you can contact a lawyer who can do all kinds of investigation about how to find out if there have been products that, like yours, that have been defective. So, that the first step is get the records, see what you got, and then contact a lawyer.
How about going after it just as a medical malpractice case? She didn't get better. She went in for a surgery and she came out and she's not better. Does that mean you've got a case?
A bad outcome is not indicative of malpractice.
Okay.
You can do everything right and have a bad outcome.
Right.
And so that's the first thing to remember. But, again, the Alabama Medical Liability Act in a situation like that is going to require that, that you prove your case, that you prove the negligence occurred. You can't rely on the outcome as evidence that there must have been negligence.
Right.
Okay.
And so, but the big thing there is that under a medical liability claim in the state of Alabama, you will be barred for common complications or known risks of the procedure.
Right.
So
Okay.
it can be difficult.
We see those kinds of situations in car wrecks where somebody has had a wreck. They have prior neck surgeries, infusions, the screws break, the screws back out. Sometimes there's thinning of the bone. I mean, these kinds of things can happen as a common complication of procedure. Say you have a fall, or sometimes through no impact at all. It's just your bones didn't grow around that particular screw or device appropriately. And so, that's a common complication. Another angle is potentially the doctor knew that there was a recall or should have known that there was a recall and continued to use the device. So there's a lot of things you can learn from the medical records. That'd be your first step.
Let's talk a little bit about the weather that's coming up this week. It's going to be bad, really
It's
hot.
going to be hot.
You were talking about workers' comp a little bit before we started the show. How does workers' comp figure into the weather?
Well, for years and years and years, if you were to suffer exhaustion on the job, if you were to suffer a stroke or a heart attack on the job, those are traditionally what we call idiopathic injuries. In other words, we don't know where they come from precisely. It's usually not something that you're going to have happen to you in the line and scope of your employment. And so, at least the cause of it being the line and scope of your employment, right? And so that's sort of what's changed is Alabama courts have now said, look, if you can prove that your heat exhaustion or your stroke or your heart attack is a result of you working in a 110-degree factory with no air conditioning,
Yeah.
or up on a roof or something else where you're exposed to excessive heat, then that can be a compensable injury for workers' comp.
Okay.
And so the law has sort of shifted, as the law tends to do.
Yeah, those are
And
tough jobs too.
They are.
Oh, yeah.
They are. And, so stay hydrated and get plenty of water this week because it's going to be hot.
Particularly in the next 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
for sure.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering all your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet. With the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Heath Brooks and William Meservey are here from Timberlake and League answering questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. So everything from car accidents, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, they do personal injury cases, so that's right down their line. We've got callers waiting. Robert is on the line with a question from Tuscumbia. Hi, Robert. Thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm a truck driver, and I took a leave of absence to have a knee replacement. I thought I was on an FMLA leave, and so the surgery was supposed to be done the 4th of April, so everything ran along. I didn't know there was anything wrong, and
Okay.
in the middle of June, I got paperwork that said I was eligible to draw unemployment compensation,
Okay.
which apparently I lost my job and didn't know it.
Oh,
Well, I started checking everything, and I called my insurance company that I had company insurance and asked them did my insurance get canceled, and they said yes, it did on the 5th of April.
wow.
So they canceled my insurance
And fired you and didn't tell you.
and didn't tell me. So in other words, I'm getting bills and stuff from the hospital and everything, and I asked them what was wrong, and they said, well, we tried to get in touch with you, tried to call you. And I've been at this company 14 years. And
Wow.
they said, well, we tried calling your home phone. And I said, home phone? How many people do you know nowadays have a home phone? I
Yeah.
said, I've been there 14 years,
Yeah.
and nobody's ever tried to call me. They've always used my cell phone for
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah. I bet they just didn't want to tell you. Can he do something about this?
Well, if you have the 50 or more employees in a business, and then FMLA will apply. Your job has to be held for 120 days. I don't really know what the nature of his employment is. Typically, tractor trailer drivers are under an independent kind of contractor sort of arrangement. And so in that kind of scenario, FMLA may not apply. There are some requirements that you would have to do to take advantage of your FMLA. What do you think, William?
Well, an FMLA as well, it's generally speaking, when you apply for FMLA, and first of all, you have to work at that company for a year to be eligible.
Mm-hmm.
So when you apply for FMLA and you get approved, generally speaking, you're approved for a short period of time, and then you have to re-up that. And each time that you re-up your FMLA, you then have to provide that to your employer. And so what I have seen happen before is where, someone doesn't really know that, and they may receive the notice in the mail, but then fail to provide that to their HR department or to the employer. They don't receive notice of it, and it can be a miscommunication, and you can be terminated. And in Alabama, by and large, you can be terminated for good reason, bad reason, no reason. So it would take a comprehensive review of your FMLA paperwork and your communications with the company to try to determine, A, what happened, and B, is there anything that you can do about it?
Okay.
It's my understanding that if it's an FMLA situation, there has to be a notice in writing. Is that your understanding?
The notice in writing to the employer?
Right.
Yeah.
And it would seem like COBRA insurance coverage should have been available to him for a period of time.
Right.
Whether he could get that back now, I don't know. Makes me think. Everybody that's got an employer and hasn't checked what address they've got, what phone number they've got, because we all change so much these days. You may not have. Don't let them get away with something because they've got an old address or an old phone number.
That's exactly right. And I think this is something you probably want to contact a lawyer about so that we can discuss, get your paperwork together, and see if there's an avenue that you can take that can help you. You know, the FMLA to breach FMLA to just completely disregard it as a statute can be a problem for the company that you work for. So that's something you would want to contact a lawyer about.
Good luck with it, Robert.
And to our viewers, FMLA is the Family and Medical Leave Act. The Family and Medical Leave Act does not provide compensation should you become sick on the job and need to take time off, but it does protect your job, that position at the company for the 120 days, like he said.
It's like a placeholder.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've got Hazel on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Hazel. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Oh, thank you very much.
You bet.
Mine is on real estate. I have an attic, and there's insulation up there, and that insulation blows down into my living quarters. I have told the management about it, but they're doing nothing. Do I have anything else I could do? Because I understand it is cancerous if those fibers are inhaled.
And so you're renting, is that what you're saying? You're renting the place that you are
Yes,
in?
that is correct,
So
yes.
whether management would have to do something about that?
Well, you know, here's the rule in the state of Alabama. If you are a landlord, then you have a responsibility to provide a habitable environment to your tenants. And what that will mean is that you have to provide clean air, you have to provide heat, you have to provide air conditioning, water, safe electricity. If you don't, then as a tenant, you have some rights that you can force your landlord to uphold, but you got to go about it the appropriate way. In Alabama, as a tenant, once you believe that there is an uninhabitable environment, then you have to give the landlord notice and give them a reasonable opportunity to correct it. And you have to put that notice in writing. Generally, it's about a 14-day turnaround where you would write your landlord a letter that says, look, these are the problems with my apartment, with my house. You have this amount of time to correct these problems. And then if your landlord does not correct those problems, then you have a couple more options. At that point in time, you can break your lease and move out. Or you can pay a reduced rate for what the fair market value would be for your apartment. But if it's not safe to live in, it really doesn't have much value, and it's probably something that you need to move on from. But the point is that you can't just up and move, but you do have some rights as a tenant, but landlords have a lot more.
Yeah, about 10 years ago, Alabama finally created their own uniform Landlord-Tenant Act. And by and large, as he said, you have these rights as a tenant. But unfortunately, about the only remedy under the law in the state of Alabama is to simply break your lease. And a lot of people don't want to break their lease. They've got a rent they can afford. They don't want to go somewhere else. And if you find yourself in that situation and you live within the city limits, one of the most powerful things you can do is call city code enforcement. And they'll come out to your apartment and inspect it. And if they find that hazardous material is blowing into your living area, they will contact your landlord directly and give them X amount of days to fix it. And if not, they'll condemn the property. So, generally that gets their attention relatively quickly if you're not having much success in just trying to work with your landlord.
Now, she can't just not pay her rent, right?
Negative.
That's not an option.
No.
Don't try that.
And by and large, you can't repair and deduce from your rent.
Okay.
In some states you can, but in Alabama, it's not advised.
The Madison County Department of Health sometimes can be a good resource.
Okay, we've got John on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, John. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Good evening. How y'all doing?
Doing good. Thank you
good.
for calling.
All right. And my question is dealing with land that was taken from my grandmother and it was in another state. Do y'all handle out-of-state cases like that? Or
What
what's
state are
your
you
advice?
dealing with?
Right.
Or Louisiana.
Anybody
They-
work
they-
out of Louisiana, out of your office?
We don't, John, but what's your question?
Okay, my grandma and them had this land. You know, this was after they freed the slaves and they gave people land and stuff, right?
Sure.
So everybody in that little community, they took the land and then now they got natural gas tanks on the land. So I was wondering if there's any type of way that, so my grandfather took it to court, the lawyer sold him out too. So there's any kind of way that I could go about handling the case of perhaps getting the land back and compensating and also prove that it was racism was taken at the same place to
Gotcha.
take these people land from them.
You know, this
A lot
is
of them was uneducated, they didn't know about the land and stuff like this, you know.
Yeah, John. This is something that's been in the news of late. Actually, there was a family out in California that had some very, very valuable property in Southern California that were African Americans that had the land taken away from their family, and this had been an ongoing struggle for this family for 40 or 50 years. And ultimately, they were able to prove that the land had been taken from them, and I believe the city of LA actually paid them the money of the property value at that point in time. They did have some options to get the land back or to get paid the property value. So there are some avenues to take. You know, it is under a Louisiana law, so you would need to contact a Louisiana lawyer, and I think that every particular avenue that you could take would be different on a state-by-state basis. But looking back at the probate records of the land as it changed ownership would be something that you would certainly want to hire a lawyer to try to take care of. And if the land was taken from you or from your family, then it could very well be that you have a reasonable opportunity to get it back, or at least to get paid for what it's worth.
Get them, John, and if it works out, please call us back and let us know. We'd like to celebrate with you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us. If you haven't gotten your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks and William Meservey with Timberlake and League. They are personal injury attorneys. The number 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon W. does all things family law, divorces, adoptions, child custody. She can be reached at 256-539-7337, or you can get her on the web, www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
Thank you, sir. Nursing home negligence. If you think somebody in your family is being abused or not taken care of well, where do you report that?
First thing you do is get in touch with the Alabama Department of Public Health. There is a hotline number you can call. There's also a federal hotline where you can report abuse in a nursing facility. Those can be pretty serious because those folks in the nursing home are completely dependent upon the care of the folks, the nurses, the doctors, and if they're being abused in any manner at all, then that's something that has to be reported immediately. The Alabama Department of Public Health will investigate, depending upon the abuse. I mean, if it's a physical abuse kind of thing, or if they're not treating the patient properly in terms of medical care, that's a whole different thing. If there's a potential sexual abuse or beatings, those kinds of things, that's something you may want to call the police about.
Okay. Thanks for all your information tonight. Thanks for all your questions. Everybody have a safe week.